Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest episode of our entertainment show. And this month is our cult classic feature where we look back on cult classic series throughout the decades that have left their mark on the generation in terms of TV viewing and also in terms of inspiring new generations of people all over the world to watch this series again and again, even when they weren't born when this series. And our cult classic feature for the month of May, obviously we've a number of episodes at this stage is Starsky and Hutch. In the 1970s and early 1980s, the two prominent actors in Starsky and Hutch were David Soul and Paul Michael Glazier. Obviously you'd Bernie Hamilton as well, and Bernie Hamilton, and you had the character Antonio Vargas, who played Huggy Bear as well. But our guest this evening is Arthur Roberts. He appeared in 2 episodes. His first episode was season 1, episode 16, Losing Streak, where he played Mr. White, which aired on cable TV all across America on January the 14th, 1976. And his second episode was season 4, episode 10, The Groupie. He played the character Ed Ohlin, which was brought across on cable TV all across America on November the 28th, 1978. And just a bit of background on those episodes. Losing Streak was a bit about a piano player who was a gambler who sort of robbed from Mr. White in terms of to try and fund his sort of losing streak. And the second episode then, Groupie, was about a fashion world racketeering sort of ring. But when I mentioned the word to you, Arthur, and you've been in an awful lot of TV series in the 70s and 80s and guest starring roles in those, does the Starsky and Hutch, do you still remember it? Is it one of those series where you can say, yeah, I have fond memories of my time working on that set, working with David, working with Paul Michael Glazier, and was it one of those things where you did the first episode, you were more than happy to come back in season 4 and guest star again?
Oh, sure. They were a pleasure to work with. Yeah, as you may know, there's kind of a pecking order in Hollywood where if you're a day player on a series, well, the best thing to be on a series, of course, is the series regular. That's who David and Paul were. The regular, that means you're in every week. A co-star is in for like a day or two. The next best thing you can be if you're not a series regular is the guest star, and the guest star is the lead antagonist to the star protagonist for that week. So when I was Mr. White in Losing Streak, I was the lead bad guy, what an actor friend of mine used to call a prick in a suit. I was a bad guy in a suit, polite and well dressed, and an asshole, a bad guy. They were delightful to work with. They were both very welcoming. It wasn't hard, and you learn your words. And who was it? George Burns, who said, you don't bump it. You say your lines. You don't bump into the furniture. Pick up your paycheck and go home. It's not quite that simple, but it was certainly fun working with both of them. They were both welcoming and good to work with. It was well directed, well shot. It was fun. The one thing I remember in that first episode, at some point they had me drive a Rolls Royce. And it was an old Rolls Royce. And I don't really trust Rolls Royces. I think their mystique and their prestige far exceeds their reality. And this thing, we had to hit a mark, I'm sure hitting a mark means you drive to a certain point and you stop right there on the street. Well, this car wouldn't hit the mark. I could hit the mark, but the brakes wouldn't. The car wouldn't stop on the mark. A Rolls Royce. That was wonderful. But they were fun to work with. And Huggy Bear, it was good fun.
Yeah, and I suppose, Arthur, back in the 1970s, obviously there was big productions of that sort of time. But Starsky and Hutch, one of the big sorts of productions as an actor, a guest star to appear in. And when you arrived in set back in the 1970s, was there a contrast between season 1 on set and season 4 on set, or was it polished and slick from day one?
I'd say it was pretty good from day one. They were on top of this. It was a good series. We shot it at 20th Century Fox. I remember it was the last night of taping. I had my then girlfriend come over to the set, and they were very welcoming and nice to her. We were going on vacation right after we wrapped down at Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. No, it was good from day one. I must tell you, Jim, I love your accent. My Broadway play was a play which you may have heard of called Borstal Boy, which had been the longest. Do you know it?
Yeah,
It was
part of Boston Boy.
in 1970. It won the Tony. That means Best Play on Broadway. It had been the longest running hit in the history of the Abbey Theatre Dublin.
Yeah.
And we had Neil Tobin and Frank Grimes in it. And Borstal Boy was based on a book by Brennan Behan. Well, I guess you know all this, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it just goes to show, Arthur, that no matter where you're in the world, it's a small world, really. In terms of there's always a sort of connection, and in terms of Starsky and Hutch's appeal and his resonance, in terms of an audience, it sort of never went away, really. Even when the series was over, it sort of came back up on network and so many reruns. And why do you think that maybe that it had that sort of appeal, where a sort of detective shows in sort of the 70s? When you think of maybe shows, classic shows like Dukes of Hazzard, A-Team, Starsky and Hutch, they all sort of outlived their timeline, really, in terms of when they sort of finished, they sort of kept going on, really.
Yeah, I can't answer that. It's just what appeals to the audience. What the audience likes, and they like this. I guess it hit enough notes in the demographic, male and female, young and older, for them to like it. The guys were very relatable. They weren't superheroes. They were very human. They were delightful to work with. I remember David Soul gave me a big hug when we finished, when we wrapped the first episode back in '76. I can't tell you why an audience, nobody can gravitate to a show. Back when I was doing Broadway in New York, Morse Hart wrote a book called Act One about Broadway, and he said, you don't know what you have until you put it up in front of an audience, until that curtain goes up and you put it up in front, then you know what you have, the players, whether they like it or not. And it's the same thing with television. Yeah.
And Arthur, what was the stunts team like in terms of Starsky and Hutch back in the 1970s? Did David and Paul Michael Leisure, did they do most of their stunts? And as guest actors, were you contributing most of your stunts, or was there offers there in terms of stunt coordinators to sort of double up for you?
No, we had good stunt people. I remember the stunt guy, I think, who doubled for Paul was Charlie Percerni. He was the stunt coordinator, and we had a stunt in that first episode, the one Losing Streak, where I was running away up the stairs at the Shrine Auditorium in downtown LA. And what Starsky did in the stunt was run up the stairs, jump over it was a big staircase, so there was a banister going up the middle, dividing, a railing, and he flew over the railing, running up the stairs, tackled me, and rolled down the stairs. Well, my rule about stunts personally is that if I already know how to do it in real life, I'll do it in front of the camera, TV or movie, but I'm not going to try to learn something I don't already know how to do in front of the camera and maybe screw up and get hurt and mess up. But long story short, in that stunt, we were both doubled. Paul Michael Leisure was doubled by Charlie Percerni, the stunt coordinator, who was about the same build, height, size, and of course, the stunt double always wears the same clothing. And if their hair doesn't match, they give them a wig. They match them clothes. But I mean, you go pretty fast, and it's a long shot, a wide shot, the stunt. And then I was doubled, being tackled going up the stairs by somebody kind of my size and height and look. And I don't remember if he got a wig or whatever to match my hair. And then we went, after he tackled me, as a pair, as a couple, we went rolling down the stairs, which is pretty tricky. Not too hard for stunt guys who know what the blank they're doing. And they've added, pretty tricky for actors who don't know how to do that and could get hurt. Yeah. So we were doubled by good stunt people. Yeah.
And I suppose, Arthur, in terms of the second episode, what was it like coming back again to Starsky and Hutch, and obviously portraying a sort of a different sort of character this time in Ed Ohlin? Were you sort of conscious that you'd have to make yourself sound different, probably look different, and obviously the way you sort of hold yourself on set, were you sort of conscious in terms of that, or did the character jump out of the page at you in terms of its difference and its uniqueness?
I think it jumped off the page. I don't remember at the time, Jim, exactly how that worked, but it certainly was a different character. But always I mean, I always say to people when I audition, for example, I say, can we play with this, please? And they go, what? And I say, well, if you like it any different from whatever I do, let me know. Let's see if I can do that, all right? And I try to show them, 10 colors in 5 seconds. The point is I'm very flexible. I can go faster, slower, higher, lower, angrier, sweeter, whatever they want. So this character was definitely different from the first one. But whatever it was, and we did it, and everybody was happy. I mean, you listen to the director, it's on the page, it's on the script, it's in the script, and you do what's written as best you can understand it. And if you're off, the director moves you around. It comes from the director, not from them usually, unless you're really messing up, in which case they might say something, but that doesn't happen to me, thank God. No, it went easily. It was like a reunion. It was good seeing them again. It was good seeing them. My only sadness was that it took so many, well, it was 2 years that I hadn't worked with them more in between, but it is what it is. You work as much as when they have you come in,
And what was it like Bernie Hamilton on set? An awful lot is made, obviously, of David Soul and Paul Michael Glazier, but Bernie Hamilton, who played sort of Chief Dobie, had you sort of any interactions with him?
No, not much at all. I don't remember any scenes with him, actually. I had a scene with Huggy Bear, Antonio Fargas, who was delightful, as they were, and most of my scenes were with Paul and David. I don't remember a scene with Bernie Hamilton at all.
Okay.
No.
And I suppose, Arthur, if you can tell me, before we coming on to sort of the present day and your sort of projects that you're working on at the moment, can you tell me a sort of a favorite story or a memory that's unique to you on your time on the set of Starsky and Hutch, maybe between takes, or a funny sort of a story or something, an interaction with one of the guest main actors that makes you laugh even to this day when you think about it?
I don't remember anything really funny. I just remember the warmth. I remember David hugging me when they don't always hug you goodbye when you wrap a week on a show. And I did have 5 days. I was the guest star. And David was a warm, nice hug. And I brought my then girlfriend, Joni, to the set. And they were both very friendly to her, which was nice, very unassuming. I tell you this, in all my years acting, I found the people who really know what they're doing and are confident and integrated with themselves are very unassuming and very down to earth and very easy to be with. The assholes who are very insecure and not sure how good they are or not, got to tell you how big and wonderful and great they are and how awesome and and they're idiots. I remember when I was on General Hospital 5 years later in '81, I by then was pretty experienced in the industry. I knew what I was doing. And I was on for 6 months when General Hospital was the #1 daytime soap opera in the country. Some people came on. There was a guy who was from Holland, another guy from England, and all of a sudden they were all full of themselves. They were soap opera stars. They were just the best thing going since sliced bread. Well, they weren't. They were on for a while, and they didn't realize that. And for a while, you're working and you're recognized all over the country for a while, and then you're out. And I knew it was for a while, but they were like all of a sudden, Paul and to contrary, Paul Michael Glazier and David Soul, who were series regulars for several years on a show that was doing very well, didn't have that stupid, I'm so wonderful, important attitude at all. They just were good actors doing the job, happy to be on a series. Aren't we all when you're working steady? And they were just delightful.
And I suppose, Arthur, this brings me to the current present day, roughly 45, 46 years later. It's great to see you're still active and still very much involved in the entertainment industry in terms of TV series and movies. And is it still a busy time for you? Have you been in current projects at the moment in terms of movies, guest starring in TV sort of series roles? And you might enlighten our audience here in Ireland if we're going to see you in the near future on our TV screens.
I hope you will. Yes, I just finished a movie done by a wonderful young French director, Theo, who's taking it to Cannes. He already had a film at Cannes when he was 15 years old. And this movie was called Thanksgiving Masquerade. And it was I guess you'd call it a drama comedy about a family reuniting for Thanksgiving. And I played the grumpy, wise, loving grandpa. And I had a daughter and granddaughters and their boyfriends, and we're all in the house doing different things. And that was very fun. That was a week's work 2 weeks ago, but it wasn't a week's work. I had a lot of lines, a very heavy line load, a lot of words to learn. So for me, it was really 2.5 weeks work, because the week and a half beforehand, I had to spend all my time learning all those words. You can't start the night before when you have a huge part with pages of speeches to learn your words. That won't work. Maybe if you're some kind of strange genius who can just has a automatic memory, but most of us don't. So that was a week's work there. And Thanksgiving Masquerade will be, I don't know what's going to be, but it'll be all over the place, I imagine. He took it to Cannes. Yeah.
And I suppose, Arthur, the sort of final question for you now, bringing you back to Starsky and Hutch again. Your two characters, Mr. White and Ed Ohlin, if you saw them walking down the street across the way from you and you sort of bumped into them and you had a brief, say, two-minute conversation of them, how would you describe them, or how would you sum them up to your wife going home in terms of those sort of two characters? What would be your own personal take on them?
Well, Mr. White was kind of tough. He was in a dress suit, a CEO, a hard ass, very confident, very self-confident in his arrogance and his danger and his evil. The other guy was much simpler than that, much more relaxed. Nothing is. Mr. White was the tough one. So I would say to my wife about Mr. White, you got to watch out for him. That's a tough, dangerous man, and you can't trust him.
You can't trust him.
We have in this country these days these people called Republicans who are really dangerous because they're so stupid in their ignorance. What they want to do is restrict voting and move the country back 50 years and deny women the right to abortion. These people are nuts. Not that Mr. White was like that, but he was kind of tough and dangerous and formidable. So I tell my wife to be careful around him. Ohlin, the other guy, was much more down to earth, much easier, much more relaxed around him. Yeah.
On that note, yeah. Arthur Roberts, you mentioned the Borstal Boy there, and obviously connection to Ireland. I assume that you visited our shores in the past, and is it on the bucket list to visit again sometime in the near future?
It's on my list to visit in the first place. I haven't been there yet. Okay. And my passion is photography. I have a website, ar310.com, for Arthur Roberts, and that's my area code, AR310. And on that website, they can see my acting reels and my photography, because the best of my travel shots I frame and hang on the wall, so I live with my own art. But regarding Borstal Boy, Jim, I got one quick story to tell you there. The only accent I had going into the show was a proper upper class Oxford Mayfair English accent, you know. But I played two roles in Borstal Boy. In the first act, as you may know, Borstal Boy is based on a book by Brendan Behan, who was a member of a group not too popular in England called the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, which I'm sure you know about.
Yes,
and
yes.
By coming to London and going into department stores or subways and with a suitcase full of explosives and blowing up the place. And so Brendan Behan was caught as a member of the IRA with a suitcase full of explosives and thrown into prison. And in the first act, I played a tough Liverpool prison guard with a North Country accent. I'll be choked during the bleeding night. What do you feel like after 20 years? That's if you're lucky and they don't hang you. Undo your braces. And the second act, because he was on good behavior, he was sent off to Borstal, which you probably know, I didn't, is reform school in the country. And that's why the title of the book was Borstal Boy. And in that second act, I played a Welsh warder with a Welsh accent, which is very sing-song. I didn't have either one. So one night in rehearsal, I took one of the guys in the cast who was English home with me. And back in those days, I had a reel-to-reel recorder, not cassette, reel-to-reel tape. And he just, like learning a song, did all my lines for me into the tape recorder. First, the North Country, so I learned what the North Country accent was like. And then second, the Welsh accent. Now be on you, clean this bucket till it shines like silver. What out, on so on your name is. And I learned two accents by like learning the music of the songs from him. Yeah.
A great sort of note to finish on there in terms of the magic that was Brendan Behan and Borstal Boy. Arthur Roberts, a pleasure talking to you today, for reliving your memories of your time appearing on Starsky and Hutch, this month's cult classic feature for the month of May. Arthur Roberts appeared in season 1, episode 16, Losing Streak, played the character Mr. White, which aired all across the States on cable TV on January the 14th, 1976. And the second character character you played was Ed Ohlin, season 4, episode 10, The Groupie, which aired on November 28, 1978, which was a fashion world racketeering ring. Arthur Roberts, thanks for sharing your memories of your time on Starsky and Hutch, and it's great to see you're still active, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Arthur Roberts, take care.
Oh, thank you, Jim. It's been a pleasure. Love your accent.
Take care, Arthur.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.